Hey guys, this is Jeremy from Moralis.io. Welcome back. In this video, we'll be creating a clone of Zerion. And we'll see just how easy it is to use Moralis in order to create a portfolio app like this. This is what it's going to look like in the end. We use some React and some Material Y to make it nice and pretty. We'll grab some prices from CoinGecko API. We'll be using the Ropsten testnet. You can use either mainnet or Ropsten. And I went to Uniswap and grabbed some DAI. There's some other random tokens I found on Ropsten. There isn't a whole many of them. Then I went over to Compound. They supplied some Ropsten Ether and borrowed some comp tokens. So that's where we get the Compound ETH and the compound from. And of course, we have our test Ether here. So in order to build an app like this, what are the things we're going to need? Well, we're going to need some data. We can get all that from Moralis to query their transactions to figure out what all the token balances are for the user. We're going to need to authenticate with Metamask. So if I just log out here, it'll show the welcome screen. Let me click connect and sign in. Moralis will go into the blockchain and sync all the transactions and figure out all the token balances for us. So that's great. So let's dig in and see what that looks like. Right. So as I mentioned, we can create a new server here, and we can either use testnet or Ropsten. I've already created a server here. If we go to the dashboard in the browser, after your user is logged in, it's going to sync a whole bunch of transactions from stuff, NFT tokens and ETH token transfers. But the table we're looking at here is called ETH token balance, and this will show all of the tokens that a user has on Ethereum, what their balances are, the name of the token, how many decimals it has, and we can use that information to display the token amounts in our app. And then we can go to CoinGecko, to their API, and use the coins market endpoint here in order to get some price data. Right. So if look at the cloud function here, there's two tables that we'll need to take a look at. There's ETH token balance. There's also the underscore ETH address table, and this has the Ethereum address balance here under the balance ETH column. So there's two tables that we need to get to aggregate data from: ETH token balance and ETH address. So our cloud function will need to aggregate the results from both of those tables. So we use Moralis cloud.define to create a cloud function called getTokens that takes a user parameter called address. We're going to query the ETH token balance and the ETH address tables, and then combine these results together to return a value. So that's what that looks like. If we jump quick here into the dashboard, the JavaScript console, I've already set this up. If we run this, you can see that it outputs the rows from the table there and an array with all the name balance symbols. We have all the tokens there, and the last one will be the Ethereum balance that we added manually from the underscore ETH table. Great, so that covers our data from the server. So then we'll need to create a React app on the front end in order to display our data. And we'll use the react-moralis package here to make our lives easier in React. This provides a bunch of really useful React hooks that we can call to communicate with the Moralis server in a much more efficient way. So we can install this using install react-moralis. And there's a couple of hooks that are really useful. One of them is use Moralis hook. This will return all of the Web3 functions, authenticate, the user object, which will be either null if the user is not authenticated, or be set to the user object if they've authenticated. It'll also return functions here like the log in and log out and sign up, or signing up with a username and password. And then we can use this is authenticated property returned by the hook in order to conditionally display our login button or a welcome message. So that's one of the hooks we'll be using. The other hook that we'll need is the one for the cloud functions. You can see there's some other hooks here. We have stuff for manipulating the user object. There's a hook here for regular Moralis queries and for live queries, which also comes in handy. A hook for interacting with files and IPFS. We won't be using that one. But cloud function hook is the one that we'll want. And then we can call this with our cloud function get tokens and receive back the data. And the hook will just take care of all the details for us. So this makes things a lot faster. We can get up and going pretty quickly. So if we jump back into the code here, the first thing we want to do is, I've already set this up, but to get things going, we start in the user way with npx create react app script and the name of your project, Moralis Zerion clone. And if you press enter, this will install all the React dependencies and create the basic React project structure. And then we'll need all of our dependencies, which I'll mention here quick as well. I'll be this in here. So we'll need the Moralis package. This is the SDK that we use to communicate with the Moralis server. React-Moralis is our React package for all the useful hooks that we'll be using, and some material UI components for React to make things look nice and pretty. So that's what you need to install. I'll get rid of that because I've already done that here. Then I'll go over quickly the other things you need to do to set it up. First, we'll need to grab the server URL and app ID from the server, and we can find this on our server page by clicking View Details here. And it'll come up with the server URL and application ID. Right. And then if we look at the React docs here, React Moralis docs, go back to the beginning, we can see that we need to create a provider object or provider component here with the app ID and server URL as props. This will provide the Moralis SDK objects to our components in the app. And this is what we've done here. We were just importing using the .m file. So be sure to create a .m file. Here's an example one here with these keys. And then we can use these process end keys to initialize the Moralis provider. The other thing we have here is a theme provider from the material UI. And I'll show the docs there as well quick. This is a material UI. You can go to their docs site, which is pretty decent here, and go to getting started. npm install material UI. There's a bunch of components in here that are really useful. I use box a lot. This is kind of like a wrapped div. We can combine that with under system here. Anyway, there's some flexbox utilities. We'll be using the drawer component here under navigation to do the side menu. The buttons and the material icons, all of that stuff is in the documentation on the Material Y site. All right. Okay, so we've created our Cloud function. We've installed all the components for our dependencies for our React app. We've set up the application ID and server URL so we can talk to our Moralis server. Next thing we'll need to do is set up a login. I've created a login component here. This is pretty much exactly like the docs on the react-moralis GitHub README. We call the use Moralis hook. That provides us the Authenticate function and the logout function that we can use to authenticate with Metamask and to log out. So if the isAuthenticated flag is not true, then we display the connect button. Otherwise, we show the address with the X icon so that they can log out. Our React app here, we have the address and the X, and if you press this, then the user logs out and we're back to the beginning again, and then it can press connect button again and log back in, and our data gets refreshed. All right, so that's a login. We have the user Moralis hook for that. The other thing we'll need is to create a hook that interfaces with our Cloud function. So under the hooks, I created a hooks directory here and made a custom hook called use coin data. This will interact with our Cloud function with the use Moralis Cloud function hook from the React Moralis package. So this will return that we give it the name of our Cloud function and supply it the parameters to the Cloud function. And whenever these parameters change, it'll call the Moralis Cloud function in the background, and the data state will be changed, or will be returned. And we memoize the parameters to the function just so that it doesn't update unnecessarily, causing a infinite update loop, which can happen if you don't use a memo. All right, then we have a bit of state for our hook. We want to save the coin list and the total value of the portfolio. So once we call the Cloud function, we're going to need to call the CoinGecko API in order to get the price data. So what I did is, if you look at the CoinGecko API, there's a couple of endpoints there. One of them is the coins list. This lists all the IDs and all the coins in the CoinGecko API. There's another endpoint here called coins markets. And this one you can supply a list of CoinGecko token IDs, and it'll give you the price information for all of those token IDs that you supply. But the trick is you don't know what the token ID is until you query the coins list endpoint. So what I did is I created a JSON file with all of the CoinGecko IDs and pivoted it so that the key values are all the symbol IDs, so that you can look up the data in constant time instead of trying to search through an array of IDs. So this is much faster, right? Okay, so what our hook does, it'll first create a list of IDs, the tokens that it gets from our Cloud function to find the list of CoinGecko IDs. Then it goes and asks the CoinGecko API what the market data is for that, and then looks up, combines that info with our tokens, price data with the tokens, so that we can have all that data in one place, and then stores that in the state and sums up the total value of the portfolio. There's a couple of things that you need to do here. One is that if you notice in the dashboard, we'll go into browser and token balance. One thing to be aware of is all the balances here are strings, because balances in the on-chain are all stored as EUN256 values, which are much too big for most number types. So these are stored as a string. And also that each token doesn't necessarily have the same number of decimals. So you need to watch out for that and convert the values accordingly. I have a file here called utils.js. This is borrowed directly from the Moralis scan series here. We have a function here that computes token values using the value in the decimals. We have another function here that takes an address and adds the ellipsis here, so it's not displaying the full address in the front end, and some number formatting stuff here. All right, so that's the hook. Most of the work here is just combining the data together with the CoinGecko API. Otherwise, it's just a single cloud function call to the Moralis server, and you've got all the data and some monkeying around with the CoinGecko API in order to get the prices for each of our tokens. All right, so once we have the coin data hook, we can display the assets in the app. So that all goes to getting these values. And then we can feed this into a component that displays all of the assets. Okay, and that's in the assets component here. This is mostly just a lot of material UI. We have our use coin data hook, which returns our list of coins, and the portfolio value, the total value of the portfolio. And if we have some coins, if we have tokens, we're going to display the token list. Otherwise, we'll display another button to log in on the main content area. But yeah, there's just basically a bunch of material UI. We have some boxes here that uses the flex utilities for material UI in order to format things nicely. We have the avatar component that displays the token image that we get from the CoinGecko API. Some material icons, and some formatting, all contained within a card component. And that's basically it. We have some hooks, some calls to the cloud function. Combine it all together, and Bob's your uncle. And everything's all combined together. You can look something like this. Right. So that's about it for this video. There's a bunch of things we could do to improve here. One of which is to add address linking to our login, so that if the user changes addresses, we can link multiple addresses in here to combine the transactions from more than one address. That's pretty simple with the use Moralis hook. Another thing we could do is to sort the values returned by the in order, with the assets that have the most value appearing at the top. That's a little more complex because it requires a more complex query on the back end. We go over a bit on that in the Moralis scan series. It's made kind of nasty by the fact that you have to convert the text value in the server into numbers and fiddle around with the decimal places. The Zerion app also creates aggregates data from Polygon and from Binance Smart Chain. That's something we could also add later. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Like, comment, subscribe below. Let us know if you have any more suggestions, or if you'd like to see another episode in the series where we go over adding some of the features we mentioned. Until next time, have a good one, and talk to you guys later.